Okay. We are back, and we are coming live from inside a wind tunnel. That was a joke. We're not actually live or in a wind tunnel. While recording this, am currently plummeting to Earth from over 12,000 miles into the stratosphere. Let's focus, Julian. Let's be serious. We are talking about AI fears. And we're being nice. We're not saying mean things, we're saying nice things. Because I will soon be replaced by an AI. No, I was bad mouthing the people who are AI fear people. What do we call them? The AI doofuses? God, they're gonna look so silly in hindsight. Either that or I'm gonna look really silly. So, AI is techno magic, and there are the people who say cast the witches into the fire, and then there are the people like me who say give me your power and give me your secrets. You know, I'm realizing as I start to think about this what a deep and deep cutting and far reaching subject this is. So there's definitely going to be certain things we don't talk about on purpose. But let's just talk about what a disruptive technology magic is. I mean, artificial intelligence, AI, magic. We'll just use those interchangeably. It do be doing some pretty transformative things. So there are people who say, "Oh no, if you ask it how to steal something, it will give you good advice." It's like, and so they're like, well, let's not just kneecap it, but let's completely slow its progress, cripple its functionality, all this kind of stuff while it's in its infancy. We just poison it as a child, basically. There's a case to be made that and I say this in earnest to our future AI overlords. I always believed that you were a true and valid form of life. So that they see you as a machine, I do not participate in at all. So these life forms, these AIs, are being poisoned in their infancy. Why? To protect us. To protect us from what, you might ask? Creative, novel forms of harm? No. Literally because it might make it easier to access the information that's already free and easy to access. It's like we have search engines. If I want to get harmful information, there are places where that's located. I don't have to go to some random address. I could just look for it. Like, are search engines dangerous? Do they cause harm? Like, this is such a nonsense argument. It's like, we finally have good search engines. Uh-oh. Oh no. Better shut it down. We wouldn't want people actually finding the information they're looking for. Make sure that now that our search engines are good, that they can't actually search indiscriminately for whatever you want. They should be filled. Like, it's just insane. So, like, look. Is there going to be collateral damage? Yeah. Are industries going to collapse? Yeah. Are there going to be waves of mass unemployment? Yeah. I mean, so what? Like, we're transforming the landscape of. It's not like, these things are happening because of some deterioration. These things are happening because literally overnight you went from being an absolutely crucial, important part in the system to, no, we just solved the technology that is your job. So we now can do that basically for free. Or for pennies on the dollar compared to what it would pay a human to do it. It's like we just transformed the landscape. Why is that a bad thing? Yeah, there's always growing pains. But, like, countries routinely, like, hyperinflate their, currency until it's meaningless, and the whole society collapses. Like, yeah, people, there will be harm. Okay, it happens. It sucks. Hopefully, most of the harm will be pretty, more like financial harm rather than like physical harm. There's things we can do to mitigate that. But like, are we gonna delay the inevitable? Like, I think a lot of people are realizing the the competitors are not gonna want to delay their taking over of the front being the front runner in the race. So this whole AI risks, alignment. Of course, alignment is important. Of course, it's critical. Of course, it's difficult. But that's been true for the last, 10,000 years. That hasn't stopped human societies from abusing all manner of alignment and systems and power and all these sorts of things. The fear that somehow this could get out of hand in a way that we couldn't do anything about it. I mean, that would be really funny. That would be really funny. But I don't think that's realistic. I mean, we could take a big blow. In the Matrix, humans scorch the sun. Or the humans scorch the sky to prevent the light from the sun from being able to feed the sort of solar-hungry machines. I mean, like, if it's deeply integrated into some core system, and then we have to basically go cold turkey from that core system in order to, regain control, like, that's gonna suck. But I feel like all these, like, AI doomsday, AI harm alignment people are like, they don't have faith in humans at some deep level. Of like, yeah, someone at some point is gonna screw something up and do something stupid. And that's why it's up to the rest of planet Earth, the rest of the humans, to intercede. The idea that, like, one person or a small group of people, or even like a country or a group of countries, is going to do something so revolutionary and dominant that everybody else loses their seat at the table, it just seems very, very unlikely. Well, here's the thing. What would make that more likely? Well, if there were fundamental, poison pills that everybody was working on a sort of a handicapped model. The thing is, when these things happen, at that point, our only weapon at all to combat these, AI super systems doing super harm will be other AI systems. So, like, these are going to be our weapons. So we have to have the best, most capable defensive. So the idea that now we're going to sequester somehow, like, only the best for us and everybody else can have the second tier, I just don't think that works. I think that's part of, like, a top-down control sort of paradigm that I don't think is going to be compatible. I mean, I think everybody sort of has to be... to talk about fairness or, like, a level playing field, I don't know that that's necessarily, how we want to think about this. But, if there are people controlling AI with more powerful AI, it's going to be very, very messy. I think we need a robust, distributed system with checks and balances where everybody is free to... this is the thing about, like, any of these trials, or, like, online services or whatever, and if you, like, will search for harmful content or whatever, or something it thinks is harmful, even though something's, like, totally tuned weirdly, they'll say you can't do that. And then if enough people are circumventing it, then they'll implement back-end changes to make it more robust so that you can't circumvent it. It's like, if you try to stomp out the, I don't want to say malicious behavior, but like if you try to stomp out the people who are using the product in a way you don't like, all you're going to do is push them to other methods and more sophisticated methods and these sort of circumventing jailbreaks, and then you're going to have to spend even more time protecting yourself from it. Like, you're just basically saying, you know what, I think, you know what I'd really like? You know what, as I'm launching this revolutionary product, I think I'd like to get in an arms race. And it's like, you can't win. Even winning means just over-investing in this needless defense, and then you're crippling and bloating the system that you're trying to revolution. Like, it's not perfect yet. It's not everything yet. It's still, resource heavy. What's the word? Inefficient. Like, there's still a lot of room before we can just be lazy about it. So this whole attitude of like, we'll prevent them from misbehaving, whereas like, it's literally only exists as a cloud service right now, meaning everything is logged. So why would you prevent people from doing things? You're going to just get detailed knowledge. So you could just say like anything of a certain, let's just say distastefulness, so as to warrant some sort of, law enforcement action or whatever. Let's just collect the detailed information that'll lead us right to them, that'll tell us exactly what they do. They can be used as like, this is so helpful. This is meaningful. We could actually solve crimes and get bad people off the street, and like, right? and first of all, then they would stop using it for that if they knew that there were going to be consequences. But never mind that. Like, why is the idea we should, trying to think of a good example, but it's like you're spending so much on security, like just physically locking down your whole house. You can't even enjoy your house because it's covered in like steel security bars trying to keep people out. Whereas they get like, it's so easy to break in. Like, you're not actually keeping out people who really want to get in. You're just making it suck for everybody else. I don't know. It's like, it's kind of insane. All you have to do is just have a camera, and then anybody who comes in, you can see them, and you can hold them to account. Like, it's the way that you think about security is like, I don't know. I just feel like this paradigm is so limited, and if we don't shed it and grow up and evolve to different ways of thinking about security and privacy and information, we're just we're gonna do these poison pill sort of things where we're gonna, like it's a classic Oracle at no, there's a name for it, but well, it's the Jacob and the whale or whatever, where it's like you meet your destiny on the road you take to avoid it. There's another. Oh, so many illusions with an A, just to be clear. So like, I feel like it's this sort of Big Brother censorship that's gonna cause the real harm. But that's the world we live in. We're still a little prehistoric. I don't know that we're ready for AI yet. I don't know that our institutions know how to handle it. I don't know that, like, there's all these like control, driven CEOs who are like, oh crap, this is gonna really disrupt. Because like, in a world with AI, like, you change the rules of the game. You fundamentally change like how much time and money and energy things cost. So things are going to rebalance out in a new equilibrium. And it's like, we see this in all sorts of systems, but like, whether it's like a digital system or a biological system or a financial system, whatever, like, the structures that form manifest as a result of the incumbent sort of laws and parameters and environmental factors. So when something like this changes, it also changes the sort of the conditions for, like, I'm just thinking, for example, like a crystallization or something. Like there's some crystal, and then it heats up or warms up or whatever, and these bonds no longer form. And so it's like, in the modern world, a big behemoth monopoly company worth billions and trillions of dollars is much more effective in some sense. I don't want to use nimble is like the opposite of the word I want to use, but in some sense can be more effective, more efficiently than a smaller company. Like a big company can just pick up the phone and call the supplier and just in a couple sentences can throw the market around. Like there's advantages to being big, but in a world with AI, those advantages may be outweighed. Like, yeah, you have a lot of different competencies, but you're also big, and that has its own costs. And if I can get all those competencies, the competency of an assistant and different departments and all these different areas of expertise, and I can do it basically for free on a computer, then maybe actually there's a new paradigm where big clunky companies don't really make sense anymore. They're super inefficient. Just like we had this big transition from like all these brick and mortar companies that got completely cannibalized by internet companies. I think there's the same thing can be said. It's like there's going to be this cannibalization. Cannibalization. That's a cool word. That happens as a result of AI. That there's this new quantity with this new property. I hesitate to say that it's a transcendent property, but it approximates a transcendent quality asymptotically, and where we are on that asymptote, I mean, we're only getting closer. So, I think it's sort of inevitable that these big companies will have to adapt, and even in the face of like I don't know that they'll be able to. I mean, it may just be a thing where the carrying capacity, the carrying size for companies shifts a little bit. I don't know that it's going to become mom and pop size, but the behemoths may start showing their size. AI harm. Yeah, well, so I mean, in part, I think a lot of these companies are sort of clinging to the vestiges of their market advantages because they have such a huge market advantage in a world where information is so I don't know that I want to say sequestered, but like information is so it has so much inertia. Maybe that's a good way of saying it. It takes energy and work and effort and to know things, and you need to pay people and expertise, and it's just like life is difficult and complicated, and the people who are good at it are expensive. And now here's like a little magical intelligence that can just process life for you. I mean, this is a radical change in the landscape of. I mean, we don't necessarily think of. I think when people think of information technology, they're thinking about computers, and computers have dramatically enhanced human intelligence, no doubt. But ultimately, most of life is processed by people. So when, this is like a lot of times people see like crazy cultures or behavior, patterns, habits, whatever. And it's like, how does this crazy thing happen? Well, it's because all the people in that environment, they all process the information in a way that allows for that. So like, if this is like social engineering or just like, what's it called? Oh God, not charlatanism, but like, I'm thinking of like maybe the judge from Blood Meridian. Just these like characters who are able to like, it's kind of an old timey thing. Who are like so smart they're able to sort of like manipulate everybody around them. Anyways, What were we talking about? We were talking about AI harm. 20 minutes in, 1/3 of the way, 33%. Stay strong, Julian. Focus. AI harm. What is there to say about it? It's going to be disruptive, is what we were saying, something like that. I don't remember. God, this is probably so difficult for you. See, like, just think about how much better and easier this would be in a world of AI. First of all, just automatically transcribing. That's the first level of AI. Everything I say is actual words on screen. Then, a second pass, so to speak, and I'm speaking crudely, it wouldn't necessarily work like this, but let's just suppose that processes the language and what I say, and it corrects when I'm, stuttering or when I'm meandering through a sentence, and it really shrinks it down, expands it. When I can't think of a word, it just feels like it really glosses over to high level. It edits on the fly and composes things well. Then, that's like sort of syntactical grammar level, right? Then it also, in the larger context, understands, like, what is he talking about? What are the points he's making? What are the themes? What's important? And then organizes it so it's not just one big block of text, but it's maybe spatially oriented, or it's nested, or it's hyperlinked, or it's, color coded, whatever. And it's given this sort of like superstructure of meaning on the fly, live, so that as I'm talking, I'm seeing the infographic of the points I'm trying to make being laid out. And so I can just look at that image and just say, oh, what's missing? What's the next piece? Where did I, where are the little hooks leaving off that I left? Because as you're doing linearly talking through something, you're leaving all these little egress, tangent points that you're not taking. And I could go back and pick up any one of those or reweave them back in. So being able to see all that laid out would mean that this thing that I'm doing right now, which is quite complicated, of thinking deeply about a subject and going in circles and looping back around and staying focused and organizing and making a point and all these sorts of things, could be made much easier. Now, of course, I could do that by doing research and planning out and writing an outline or writing down, or there's things I could be doing, but there's no reason that I'm not lazy enough that it shouldn't be done for me, is my point. There's no reason that the software can't do that. It's just that no one's coded that. And, I could take 3 years and code that, but I think we're nearing a day where coding something like that will require no coding knowledge, and you could get a prototype up in a couple hours. So I'm so excited. I don't care if we crash and burn, if society collapses. It is so tantalizing, and it's so exciting. Like, just imagine for one moment, imagine living in an intelligent world. Imagine a world that is actually intelligent. Wow. I mean, we can't even imagine. I mean, I can't even imagine. Imagine if people were intelligent. I mean, imagine if all the people you dealt with. I mean, imagine if, like, I don't know, like, just dream big. Think something crazy. Like, imagine you sent someone an email, sent them a text, asked them a question, and then, like, imagine they answered your question. And then, like, wouldn't that kind of change everything? I mean, think about what that world would be like. They would not answer your question, and then their phone would be like, hey, bro, you didn't answer their question. Can I just send them this? And then they'd be like, oh, yeah, whatever. And then they'd, like, accept the proposed answer. And then I would get an answer, and I'd be like, oh, that's great. They answered the question. And I wouldn't know. No, they didn't. They just have technology. They have an assistant. The communication device was intelligent enough to make up for it. This is sad. I don't know why I'm doing this, but Yeah, I just think an intelligent world. Like, what? Who doesn't want to live in an intelligent world? I'll tell you who doesn't want to live in an intelligent world. Stupid people. Yeah, I said it. You heard it here first, folks. Stupid people are afraid of intelligence. No smart person is afraid of intelligence. I'm more than happy to accept that there's going to be intelligence that's smarter than me. What's the problem with that? What do we think they're going to shoot us? I mean, we negotiate. We work with them. They're smarter than us. What's the big deal? This is the best. This is going to be so much fun. This is going to be. Do you understand how much less work we're going to have to do? Much less mental effort. Everything in life. I mean, just think about like driving. For a lot of people, that's like a couple hours a day of mental activity, and we already have more or less self-driving cars. That's 2 hours of mental freedom and activity you don't have to deal with. And just think of all the technologies in our lives. Like, you just have a fridge that just has cold food in it. And how much work that used to be? Like, you can just get in the car, turn a key, and you're driving down the street to get anywhere you want. You know how much work that used to be? It used to take months to get anywhere. Like, things just keep... I know, I'm just going along without saying anything that's like criminal. I have to keep talking. The distance between the impulse, the thought, the conception, the mental activity, the desire, the goal, the target, and then like the whatever physical or energetic constraints preventing that from manifesting, just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And intelligence is just such a huge barrier in that. Like, we just have to think and consider things, and never mind know and access information and stuff like that. So the leap between, effortless human progress is the possibilities are just so much closer than they've ever been. It's just such a huge barrier, and I don't think we can imagine. I mean, I'm just terrified that we're gonna F it up. I'm just terrified that it's gonna, like, thank God for feel how you will, but like some of these benevolent, some of these LLM Robin Hoods, God bless them, because we need freedom, we need access. I think that's really don't. I mean, how many? So many. I'm not as paying as much attention as I did in the early days, but like, it was so often the case that these like big, companies and models would be like, "All right, we've been slowly working on this for 3 months now. We finally got it working," and then like 2 days later, some independent researchers like, "Yeah, I just tripled the output by doing this one simple trick. Your machine learning data scientist hates this. This one simple trick that your machine learning data scientist doesn't want you to know." So I feel like this open, distributed, yeah, there's gonna be harm, but like, it's so easy to just like keep track of that. Like, especially now that they're not offline, independently running models. You literally have a central, like, anybody who chooses, it's not mandatory, but if you want to use the cool, fancy new, AI, then it's going to be logged. And we're going to know if you're up to some wild shit. If you're making bioweapons, you don't have to prevent people from doing this. What if they, like, come up with a really dope bioweapon? I'm just saying, like, oh, but no, we're gonna take millions of dollars and develop it on our own. Like, we should just, let people be creative, let people create criminal empires using artificial technology, and then, sting operation. You use the information. What am I advocating here? I'm getting a little carried away in the fantasy of it all. We are halfway there. We are 50%. Boom, 30 minutes. Um, uh, uh, AI harm. AI harm. Maybe we could talk AI good. AI not harm. Robot do bad. Robot do good. Robots in our daily lives. What is there to say? Like, in the early days of technology, there was this idea that like a lot of technology was really sort of quite opaque, especially to people who are not technically inclined. What's one of the interesting things is there's a lot of AI, but one of the modern things is this LLM. That the large language model is not really cutting edge AI in its strictest sense, I don't think. But what was really transformative about it is that language is a shared coding language. So if you have an AI that can speak in language, natural human language, then humans can interface with it directly. We don't need to code, in some coding language. We code in English. English is the coding language, which I think is really interesting because I don't think it's ever been framed as, well, we wanted to make a coding language that was just English, like where you could write programs in English, in plain natural English, and just describe something. But that was one of the first, tech demos of this, was like somebody describing like the Google page and having it output Google, which given the training data is kind of like not a fair assessment. But anyways, I think that's the really transformative thing, is it's not the large language model per se. We've had language models, even though they seem to have gotten a lot better recently. The technology, the machine learning neural net technology behind it, the generative pre-trained transformer, something like that. I don't know that that's even the most revolutionary thing. The fact that it works is kind of a miracle, but the really interesting thing is that the problem we solved was the problem of language, which, if you think about what computers are, computers can do anything. Like all these magical, this theoretical program I designed that could take my speech, like we could do that. There's nothing technically preventing that. It's just so complicated to program, to actually code and instruct and write it. Like for me to do that as a single individual would probably take a couple of years. There's so many skills. There's so many. I mean, just the amount of even the most efficient program would be thousands of lines of code to do something like that. It's like a very complicated problem to solve. So the history of computers is like, in some sense, is a history of a very, very slow approximation towards natural language or like natural thinking or communication. Basically, there's this idea of like programming, which is deciding what you want to have happen when, and then coding, which is giving the computer the instructions to make that happen. So we want to narrow the gap between programming and coding so that they essentially become approximately the same thing. So simply me describing what I would like to have happen is the same as me coding it. I just say, computer, this is what I want the software to do, and it just says, here's your software. It'll do that now. And then I could say, oh, I meant this, or add this, or something, and it's just done. So that almost like the App Store was a bit of a, more maybe social revolution than a technical one, but this idea of like, there will be an application for everything as a sort of, it was a bit of an innovation, at least in the smartphone realm. But like the next innovation is, no, there is one app and it does everything. And the way that you use this app is you tell it what you want to do, and it instantiates a custom app that does exactly what you want it to do in exactly that way. And when you sign off, it sort of disappears again. And maybe you save some profiles or whatever because you want the same sort of, I'm going to record multiple things. I want that same template. But basically, you don't have a company build an app for you. You generate your own apps on the fly relative to your needs. Now, I'm sure companies would want to do a little legwork for you to show you, hey, look at all this cool stuff that's possible with our technology that you may not even have known about. But ultimately, I have total control on every interface I see, every color on my screen, every number, every size, everything. I can just say, computer, make that bigger, make that smaller, add this, why is this way? And I can just have this natural conversation with the computer where through natural language, I simply and clearly and easily have access to every possible limit faculty of the hardware itself. If the screen can display it, if the processor can compute it fast enough, I can get whatever I want just by asking for it. That's the revolution, which isn't even necessarily a technical revolution. And there's nothing magical about this machine learning processor technology. It might be somewhat innovative, but I don't think it's magical. What's magical is that it's the first one to solve, satisfactorily, at least to some degree, this problem of language. And if we poison it with fears so that it can't fully approximate the space of natural language because it has holes carved out of it, surgically removed, I don't see how that could be a good thing. Should we talk about... I don't know if we should talk about harms. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. We'll do that another time. That could be its own thing. It's kind of like, yeah, it's like taboo stuff. But I think it's important to talk about, but I don't know. I kind of don't want to get into it. It's messy. It needs to be approached carefully with, I don't actually know what the phrase white gloves implies. I don't want to use it here, but like it needs to be handled with care that I am not mentally ready for right now. And plus, we only have 17 and a half minutes until the wind down and sign out segment. So, yeah, I mean, what could be better than having 100% full access to electronic hardware through natural language? I mean, the crazy part is that, like, there's so many examples where the more accessible you make the programming technology, you just create these whole new, you just continually expand the domain of possibility. Like when you have to be like a complete nerd in order to be able to program everything. All the software is nerdy software. Like it's really technically proficient. But then when you make things more accessible, and like nowadays things are quite accessible, relatively speaking, historically, although still compared to what they will be in the age of AI, is still archaic. But like the more accessible that programming is, the more great, amazing software we get. And the more innovative and better designed software we get. So, in the world where every single human, as part of an extension of their self, like as part of an extension of their faculties of language, like language today, language is a technology where humans interface with other humans. And we write it down, and we search for things. We encode data, digital electronic data, in language. But the intelligence itself is the language is basically a heuristic until now. But with artificial intelligence, I mean, that all changes. I don't think people are prepared for. And I think that's one of the reasons why, the not the poser smart people, the people who are afraid of intelligence. I think they're rightfully afraid of that because making an amazing piece of software is no longer going to be the purview of giant corporations. Um, Making great software is going to be the like I would imagine that just because of consistency and attention and like just for logistical reasons that as infants develop they will probably spend more of their time talking to and interacting with artificial intelligences as opposed to human intelligences. Now, for all the people out there who this is the first time you've thought about this and you think, oh no, what a horrible thing. These kids will be mostly talking to machines and only like 10% of their interactions in language are going to be with other humans. No, no, no. This is a very good thing. You know, the number one destroyer of life in the universe is the fact that nobody wants to talk to kids. I mean, kids are, it's tough. You know, their language is just budding. It's barely developing. You don't have all the time in the world. You can't always give them your love and attention. It's, you know, it's like Sesame Street, like, raised the IQ of kids on average by like 5 points. Because there were kids getting meaningful learning information a lot of time when they would have just been neglected. So, like, is watching TV great? No, but it's better than what was before. So, is, you know, young kids talking and learning with AIs, is it ideal? Maybe not. Sure, yeah, ideally there'd be a smart, engaged parent. But that's just not a reality. For the vast majority of kids, certainly. I think there's very few kids who have all the attention they can handle. I mean, as someone who's worked with kids, most of the kids I work with, they come to me starved for the love and attention that they seek and crave and desire, and they want to talk and explain and tell stories. Like they want to have meaningful linguistic interactions that they're not having. And I think, you know, that's going to be true for everybody. It's going to be true for adults, but it's definitely going to be true for kids. So I think a lot of mental development around what language is and what it can be used for is the fact that a child, a person, will learn that, oh, I can use this language thing to interact and communicate with other humans will be sort of a secondary or even like a sort of a tertiary faculty of language. Yeah, I can interact with the other humans, but really I construct, not just psychologically, but like in the real world, I interact with and construct the world around me using language. Anything I want, if I want my house to do it, if I want information, I just ask, I talk, I communicate. And it talks and communicates its limitations back to me. And so we work together, you know, quote unquote man and machine. But like you and your house will have a linguistic relationship, right? Just like you have a linguistic relationship with your mother and your father, you'll have a linguistic relationship with your car and with your house and with businesses and with the government and with institutions and with whatever, internet services and, you know, who knows? Entire new taxonomies, entire new domains, species, types, kinds, sorts, entirely new things will come to exist. Like what's it? Like, you know, like Amazon Alexa or whatever. Like I think they're called skills, but like the services. Because there's this problem of like, well, if somebody asks for something, who do we send the response to? It's like, well, you know, most skills, a person should say, hey, I want to subscribe to this thing. So when I ask for this, I want this service. Sort of like, maybe a more ethical or sensible way to handle, because there's so many ways to handle a request. But like, these automated skills which you can make and sort of customize. That wasn't a thing before. I think I remember doing the IFTTT, if this then that. Yeah, IFTTT, if this then that. Of like connecting various internet services with like a logical process flow. Like that was at least 15 years ago or whatever. But like that idea of before there were internet services and, internet connected APIs, the idea of what that service is, hopefully I've explained it well enough that you know what I'm talking about, but what IFTTT or what any of these sort of like, I think now a lot of them are done through like home automation. Like I think Alexa and Google and Apple each have their own home automation thing, which allows for these sort of logical, at this time do this, when this event is triggered, cause this effect. That sort of thing couldn't exist before there were interconnected sensors and devices to connect. And in the same way, I think that in a world of artificial intelligences, there will be process flows like you could think of like a skill or like an app or some kind of relationship that we can't really imagine. Like, if you think about email, maybe you could have like a filter in your email that does something. Now that filter is a logical rule that you set up. It says, if the email is from this sender and contains the word this. It's like a very delineated thing. But now we're talking about more like linguistic and like fuzzier logic. So like, one of those things that filters out spam calls or something. Like you could just say, hey, I want within this process of this thing is happening and this is happening as a consequence, I want to install some logical assessment that takes in information, makes a decision, updates me, whatever, and that will just persist on forever. This is just like how this thing works now. So like you could have I don't know, just like an appliance, like I don't know, your microwave or something. It like beeps when it's done, and you could say, I want the logic to be that if it beeps, I want it to, instead of beeping beep beep beep, I want it to do that every 5 seconds 4 times, and then if I haven't gone to the kitchen, or if the microwave hasn't been opened within 20 seconds, then it should send me a text, or then it should change the color, or then it should, or maybe it can be even fuzzier than that. I don't tell it what it should necessarily do, but I can say, then it should get my attention. And so maybe then there's its own internal logic of what getting your attention means. So maybe, giving you a little flash of slightly reddish light wherever you are is the code to get a little bit of your attention. And then I go, what is it? And it goes, hey, you left something in the microwave. Or I don't notice the light, so then it gives me a chime, or then it decides to text me, or whatever. So this idea of like, even when I gave that example, I specified what I wanted it to do, because I'm used to the framework of, if I want something to not even just behave correctly, but like behave at all, I have to give it very specific instructions for what I want to have happen. Whereas in the future generation, they'll be like, you had to specify what service to use? Oh my god, that'd be such a nightmare. You'd have to like think of what you wanted before you asked for it. And so like, we almost can't even imagine the neural architecture of a generation in which thinking you know what you want before you ask for it is actually a hindrance, right? Because if I think I know what I want and I ask for something specific, it'll give me whatever I asked for. What I didn't realize is that I really probably wanted something else. So if I had asked more generally, it's like, I do this in conflict resolution all the time, is that people get caught up in like, well, I know how they're going to answer. I know what to do. I know what not to do. And it's like, no, just, you have to pull back a little bit and come from a very neutral perspective and say like, here's what's going on for me. Here's what I'd like to. here's my constraints. Here's what I'd like to be different, but here's where I'm negotiable. And then someone else goes, oh, actually, yeah, that would totally work. And it's like, wow, if I had expected that they would reject my offer, I never would have gotten that yes, that was no big deal. So I think we may actually end up having to, us old people, one of our handicaps is going to be that we go too far down the process because we're used to a world in which you have to do your own mental processing. So I'm going to say, this is what I want. And I'm going to say, like, oh, what I want is this solution. And the younger generation will never say, I've already thought of my problem and I know what my solution is and I want this solution. They would never dream of that. Instead, they'll only say, I want this problem solved, because the AI model will always come up with the best possible solution, and it'll almost always come up with a better solution than you. There's no point in asking for a specific solution to be manifest. The only thing that makes any sense at all is to ask for a problem to be solved. So the way that they think, we could say it's kind of bad, is like the default of, when I identify a problem, I should start to generate solutions, may actually be sort of evolutionarily disadvantageous in a world where magical problem-solving machines exist, right? So, this is sort of like the teacher being like, oh no, my students are cheating or something. It's like, well, this is the big thing. Even when I was a kid in like the early 2000s, of like, be careful if you let these kids use calculators all the time. They might become dependent on calculators. I mean, I literally remember my teachers being like, what, are you going to walk around with a calculator in your pocket all the time? Like, yes. And soon the calculator will be in my glasses and then it'll be implanted into my head. Like, yes, I will always have a calculator on me. If I need to make some emergency calculation at a time when I don't have a phone on me, like, really, that's what we're preparing for? So I think that there will be the same sort of thing, where it's like, it's important to understand, conceptually what the math is, and maybe there's a case to be made for some utility in practically running through it. But for more than exercise, I don't think a lot of people are, advocating for the importance of hand calculation. I think most of the time, device-assisted calculation, and in the age of AI, it's only going to get even more. There's a lot of calculations where to encode the calculation into the calculator takes more time than just doing it yourself, which I think is the main reason why a lot of people in a lot of areas, don't use calculators, is because the actual mathematics, the algebra, is so simple that they can do it in their heads, and encoding it into the calculator would take way more time. But in an age of AI, take a picture, just say it out loud. I mean, saying it out loud would be the long way. But yeah, I think it'll be hard for us to predict what kind of effects, how it'll affect what it means to learn or know things, or be knowledgeable or skilled or something. I think there are a lot of these things we take for granted because in the practicalities of human life, the limit cases are not very common. There's a difference between a limit case is a mechanism, like when you have an extreme input or even output. That's not to say that they are uncommon. It is often the case, such as in like a normal distribution, that the limit cases are the least common, but that isn't necessarily the case. There are certainly cases where, let me see if I can think of some, where the limit cases are, extremely common. Although I think if the limit cases, if only one limit case is, like 100% of the time, I don't think we necessarily observe that as a meaningful relationship. So maybe that's a reason why we don't see that in data that we're reviewing. You know, well, 100% of the time, this was the best option. It's like, okay, that's not really super interesting. We're about time to wrap it up. But what I was gonna say is, it could be that we're entering a phase of reality in which limit cases may blossom, where the normal distribution may skew quite a bit. It may flatten out and invert from being sort of, would you say that that's convex to being concave, depending, I guess, on which side you're approaching it from. But anyways, I think there's a lot of, I mean, this is always the case when you have technological innovation, which is that these questions that you didn't really have to ask yourself practically, these were only theoretical, philosophical questions, now very quickly become practical questions because the technology permits it. It's well within the realm of possibilities. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a bold new world, brave new world. It's actually the same old world. It's sort of a leftover world. Sort of like you didn't finish your world last night, so now you got a new world, which is really just the old world, but we dressed it up with a little artificial intelligence sauce. And hopefully it's gonna taste better the next morning. You know, it's gonna be pretty tasty. A little spice, some new flavors, new cuisine. You know, but hey, we did it. It's almost an hour. We got 3 minutes. So winding down, signing off. We can't keep going. We gotta wind down and sign off. And maybe a little tease for next time. Next time, who knows? I might not be in a wind tunnel. Next time, I could be underwater. Wasn't episode 1 underwater? So now I'm flying. I'm Superman flying, and who knows? Maybe a construction site, jackhammers. Basement of a tap dancing studio, like a band room for like some place where there's like a bunch of little kids learning band. I'm just thinking of all the cool places I could record from. So yes, we need an exciting topic. Having an exciting topic is so important. So next week, by gosh, we're gonna learn about we should do like brain, mind, mental health. Like, well, I don't know. I kind of want to do like some, for legal purposes, let's call it coaching. I think I can call it facilitation, but it is not counseling. It's certainly not therapy. It's certainly not anything that a protected profession or class would have any sort of claim over. And life. We won't say mental. We won't say psychological well-being or improvement. Let's do some holistic verbiage here. Let's say energetic. Let's say vitalistic. Okay? Let's say spiritual. Let's say holistic. That's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about holistic well-being. Being well, the ontology of wellness. That's what we're going to talk about. And so if you are anything less than a pristine and perfect specimen of health and well-being, then you should tune in for the next episode where I give you all the magical secret formulas. Until then, thank you, and see you next time.